Forests play an important role in mitigating climate change as trees absorb carbon dioxide. Forests also provide protection for all living things, blocking soil erosion, droughts, floods, noise, and radiations. Forests also provide resources. Considering the scale of climate change and the fact that it will affect many aspects of our lives, mitigation and climate change adaptation also need to take place on a large scale. Especially when many countries have a hard time reducing their carbon emissions, offsetting their carbon emissions by planting and protecting forests is useful. Nations also got a big boost from the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. In fact, more than 50 nations have pledged to increase forest area or protect existing forests. In particular, China aims to plant trees over an area up to 4 times the size of the United Kingdom. Forests have 3 major roles in climate change: as sources of CO2, as carbon sinks, and as sources of alternative fuels when sustainably managed. First, forests currently contribute to about 1/6 of global carbon emissions due to land cover change, overuse, or degradation. Scientific studies reported that between 12 to 17% of all the CO2 sent into the atmosphere by human activities comes from the destruction of forests. Around 40% of the world's forests have already been lost today. This means a size of a football field is still destroyed every second. Secondly, however, on the bright side, forests have the potential to absorb about 1/10 of global carbon emissions projected for the first half of this century into their biomass, soils, and products, and store them, in principle, in perpetuity. Planting tropical moist forests can soak up an average of about 26 tons of carbon dioxide per hectare per year for at least 20 years. Large-scale tropical reforestation could make a huge dent in carbon emissions. Theoretically, we could offset about 1/3 of global emissions from all sources by planting trees and keeping global warming below 2 degrees Celsius. Forests are the second biggest carbon reservoir after the ocean. Thus, forests can help keep the carbon cycle and reduce climate change. Currently, only 3% of the forest land is covered with productive forest plantations. However, this area rapidly increased to 2 million hectares annually in the 1990s and 2.8 million hectares in the 2000s. Plantations are being established mainly in the tropics and subtropics, including Brazil and Indonesia, and in high-productivity temperate regions such as Chile and China. Despite their relatively small area, forest plantations provide more than 1/3 of industrial roundwood. The production shift from natural forests to plantations is projected to accelerate to 40% in the 2030s and 75% in the 2050s. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, organizes countries to design climate change policies. UNFCCC assists countries, especially on policy development, in stopping, reducing, and adjusting to the effects of climate change. Climate change mitigation is reducing GHG emissions from industrial activities, forestry, and agricultural activities. In addition, adaptation policies and activities should also take place to help countries find ways to adjust to the changes that are occurring and likely to occur in the future. Vital actions include reduction of CO2 and other gases released into the atmosphere, stopping deforestation, improving forest management and forest conservation, protecting communities from rising sea levels, creating national adaptation plans and finding ways to provide expertise, technology, and funds to pay for these actions. Reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation plus, or REDD+, is an effort to make trees worth more standing than cut down, by providing developing countries with economic incentives to protect their forests. To implement REDD+ worldwide, participating countries, especially developing nations, must first develop national and regional approaches that tackle forest-based emissions and benefit local communities. REDD+ should not only be recognized at the global level, but should also be defined and owned at national, regional, and individual levels, since these levels will most directly experience the benefits. For instance, even respective forest owners can sell CO2 credits to companies. This will motivate the establishment of new forests while protecting the existing ones. Even though REDD+ is just a tool to achieve lasting, meaningful emissions reductions and community engagement, it must be implemented as a means towards sustainable development. REDD+ must be integrated into broader participatory land use planning that addresses agricultural effects, extractive industries, and forest management. It must address the underlying drivers of deforestation and become part of forest governance policies. It must be embedded in economic planning, such as green growth strategies, as an investment supporting broader development objectives and poverty reduction. When REDD+ successfully safeguards the rights of local communities and indigenous peoples, it will yield the most incredible opportunity for forest conservation and global poverty reduction, which will benefit the climate, biodiversity, and local livelihoods.